What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the SPY, the Nasdaq, the QQs, and the futures. Break down what's going on with the charts right now and why tomorrow is going to be a massive day as we have some big tech earnings. What just happened with First Republic Bank that's actually causing it to sell off very hard, as it will affect the market for tomorrow, and how I do see this actually causing the market to move going forward. But before I break anything down about all of this news and information, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends tomorrow, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So when it comes to SPY, guys, you will notice that we actually did something very similar to what I predicted. I predicted we'd get a bit of a sell-off, and then we would actually get a nice bounce and actually close very flat. We ended up selling off. We got a nice bounce, and we closed up only 0.1%, so very flat overall, but it was actually similar to what I thought. But the question is, what's going to happen going forward? Are we going to be able to continue pushing, or are we about to pull back first and remain choppy? And I'm going to break down something very important related to that. So First Republic Bank, alongside other companies, reported earnings. And what the bank is doing is it actually signaled more stress and challenges going forward, because they did beat on EPS, they did beat on revenue, which is awesome. Right? You can see right here, they beat on revenue, 1.2 billion versus 1.15 billion expected. EPS was beaten by over 30%, so that's quite significant. But when you look more specifically at the data, the total deposits, including the $30 billion injection, is $104 billion, down 40% from 176.4 billion in Q4. Without the injection, right, because other banks came out and they helped bail this bank out, they helped give it more leverage, that's only 74.5 billion, a 58% decline. So in essence, their deposits have tumbled 40% to $104 billion. Without any of the money that was given to them by other banks, that's 74 billion only. That is horrible, right? They lost $102 billion in customer deposits. So that is not good whatsoever. And seeing the bonds, I know it's not showing them right now, but the large majority of these actually inverted. Once again, showing some very big signs of a recession. As far as the data goes going forward for tomorrow, I just want to note we have some housing data, some crude oil data, not a whole lot other than that, some building permits data. And finally, for earnings, we have some very big news coming out. All right, so First Republic Bank reports earnings. They actually beat on EPS and revenue, but what happened with their deposits was horrible. Huge loss. Not what they wanted compared to the previous quarter. And now we have Verizon, Microsoft, and Alphabet reporting earnings for tomorrow. That's why it's going to be a big day. The first day the giant tech stocks are going to be reporting earnings for the week. In my opinion, we're going to be reacting pretty hard to this, especially on Wednesday when Microsoft and Alphabet come out. Now, if they beat, the stock market can keep on pushing. If they miss, the market is going to just not like it. Now, let's talk about the charts. What's actually going on so far? All right, so tomorrow we have huge earnings after the market closes. But before that, so the market's going to make a move. One thing you'll notice on SPY is it's kind of shopping back and forth, at least if you just look at the after hours included. And we actually had this channel. Let me make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. We had this channel that SPY was on for quite a while, going back and forth and back and forth. But notice how we were stuck in this channel, right? And then eventually we stopped respecting the channel as much. We started actually holding the 200 EMA on the 1 hour time frame. It's around this 410 area. And then we actually broke above the channel. So that's actually a bullish signal. But we might start off with some selling, in my opinion, because of the fact that First Republic Bank is down 21.25%. You can see this massive red candle right after the market closed once their earnings came out because they lost over $100 billion in deposits compared to the previous report. Not good whatsoever. This is also not good for the collective stock market because when the banks struggle, the banks are in a way injecting money into the economy. How? Because they're lending it out. When the banks are lending out more money, when they're getting more depositors, that means more people have what? Spending power. And with that spending power, they're injecting it into the economy. They're spending more, they're buying things, that's exactly what the economy wants. But if the banks are struggling, like First Republic Bank, which is technically still struggling now, there's less people depositing money. So now they're incentivized to raise yields. That's going to cause more expenses for them. And then they're not lending out as much money. What does that mean? People are not getting as much money. They're not borrowing as much money. They're not spending as much money. So the stock market is not going to like that. So what does this tell me? Looking at other earnings, they were pretty mixed. Not too horrible, not too great. But tomorrow is going to be very big because we will react to Microsoft and Alphabet after the market closes. However, as of right now, if we do end up continuing to come down, so far I don't really see a major divergence. We actually had a bullish divergence right here. It did actually play out. We did reject off this 412.75 area. The question is, are we going to get below the 50 EMA? Well, I just want to note, guys, that because First Republic Bank sold off so hard, there's a good chance we might see the market come down to retest the 200 EMA, but there's no guarantee we break below it. So we could see this thing get very close to the high 410s again, trade sideways from there, and then continue going forward later on. But in my opinion, that's what I'm basically seeing as being the most likely thing. Us coming down a bit, retesting this, bouncing off of it, and just trading a little bit sideways. And the more bullish case would be a break above 413 because we do have an unfilled gap around 414. The more bearish case would be a break below the 200 EMA. So far, I just see us kind of chopping a bit, and then we're going to see a massive move by the time we get to Wednesday and also after the market closes on Tuesday because we have the earnings coming out from Microsoft and Alphabet. But I am predicting SPY comes down to like this 410 area, tries to bounce, it just trades sideways, and we close pretty flat, maybe a little red. That would be completely fine. For Tesla, it's looking relatively weak, a little bit weaker than expected. What I was thinking about Tesla is it would come down to about this like 163 area, maybe a little lower, and then it would try to bounce and it would make an attempt to just try to keep going. I also told you that if we get good earnings, there's a good chance it could actually go all the way up to 170. I still think that's possible, but it's looking less likely now that Tesla has some relative weakness, but we have to see what earnings bring first. But I just want to let you know from a technical standpoint, Tesla is starting to look a little bit weaker. You can see right here, it actually broke below 160, retested 158, and tried to bounce and then got rejected off 163. So for tomorrow, if you're bullish on Tesla, depending on how we react, you want to see this thing hold 163 and retest 165 and not get rejected this time or way too hard. That would be a good sign of strength. If you're bearish on Tesla, you're going to be watching it retest 160. If that fails, there's obviously 158 and then also 157.5, the zone between 157.5 to 158. But what do I think is going to happen? I would say that if the market does sell off in the morning, thanks to First Republic Bank, from a fundamental and macro standpoint, that is more likely to happen. Not a guarantee, of course, because it is a crazy market. But the odds favor Tesla maybe selling off a little bit to retest this 160. Maybe it goes a little lower. Then it bounces with the market if SPY does bounce off the 200 EMA. Then we just see Tesla trade sideways and close very flat. And then we're going to see the market make a big move once again by Wednesday, by the time the big earnings come out at the end of the day on Tuesday. And then that's going to affect how Tesla moves as well. For Coinbase, this is once again continuing to tank after the bearish news. I told you guys the area to watch was around this 54 level. We actually held 54, right? Pretty interesting. And then if we break below that, I mean, we are just getting closer and closer to this 50 mark. So far, it has not shown any strength, so it could just continue to downtrend because there's no confirmation of a bounce. But if anything, if it does actually try to bounce from here, then I'm going to be watching this 55, then 58.15 area. But I just want to note, guys, that this is just not looking too good, especially because of the fact that there could be some selling pressure tomorrow thanks to the bank. So I'd be watching how it reacts to 54. If it breaks below that, then 50 is very possible. If it manages to hold that, then it could try to get back up to 58. The dollar is still pretty flat. It's not really doing too much. But don't forget, it actually has a bullish divergence on the weekly time frame. So over the next few weeks, there could be some downside coming to the market. Anyways, on top of that, when it comes to NEO, I told you guys that NEO can make an attempt to try to move up. NEO did actually push up temporarily, but then it actually closed just a little in the red, down 0.48%. If you look at it on the after hours standpoint, NEO, it keeps getting very close to this 200 EMA, but not much is happening. I expect it to just barcode tomorrow and trade sideways. Not a whole lot's going on with this. For Microsoft, this is going to be tricky. We'll see what this thing does before earnings. If it hasn't really gone the big push up it typically gets, so we might see Microsoft just trade sideways, maybe drop a little bit approaching earnings, and then we're going to make a very big move by the time earnings come out on Tuesday after the market closes. So this is the last close for Microsoft before earnings. Make sure you guys are prepared for that. It's going to make a very big move. For the QQQ, our friend the triple Q, this thing has a very hard time breaking above the 200 EMA on the 10-minute time frame. On the 1 hour time frame, I think this looks a little better. It's still below both the 50 and the 200. There's a gap all the way down to 312 as well. Don't forget about that. There's not really a whole lot going on. It looks like it's going to sell off a little in the morning, retest 314, try to bounce off that, and just trade sideways until the big earnings come out. And I think it's just going to wait for the big earnings. I think that's all it's really doing, just trading sideways. The VIX, not a whole lot's going on with this. It is trying to base around 16. If it does actually start breaking out more, that's going to become bearish for the markets. That is a real possibility, as the VIX is actually starting to uptrend just a bit. However, one thing worth noting is the fact that it hasn't gotten a strong break above the 50 EMA yet on the hourly time frame, so we have to be very patient with it. For the SQQQ, I was actually trading this in the morning, made some good gains off calls. This right here, looking kind of choppy. If we do get a bit of a sell-off and might pump again, then reject off 31.5 to 31, then it might slow down as the day goes on, once again seeing some sideways action. Amazon's pretty flat, only down 0.7%. I'm anticipating that Amazon might just trade sideways as we get closer to earnings. It might actually pull back a little bit more. There's this 102 area that's very important, also 104 flat. It might retest 104, bounce off of it, then just trade sideways. Nvda might come down just a tiny bit and just trade sideways, just like how it did today. It did actually test 266, push up to about 273, and it just stayed between that range. So I just see it remaining between those levels, just going back and forth. Not a whole lot going on here. It is going to likely see downside in the future, but until then, I mean, it's still holding up, so just be patient. We also had a bullish divergence that developed. It did actually play out so far. I don't think there's much steam left for that specific setup. So I'm seeing a bit of a sell-off in the morning, maybe a test of like 268 and a bounce, and then it just trades sideways going forward as we approach the big earnings. Apple was up 0.19%. Apple will likely, in my opinion, it might cool off a little bit. We did actually form a bullish divergence that pushed up. Might cool off a little bit, retest the 200 EMA around this 164 level, then push up and just trade sideways waiting for some more earnings. So anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. It's just going to be kind of boring until the really big earnings come. If the 10-year treasury yield gets a bounce though off this 35 level and tries to fill this gap, that could be a bearish move for the stock market. There's also another gap up here. It did actually form like a head and shoulders like formation, so I don't know if this is going to play out. If it does, that could become a little more bullish for the stock market. From a technical standpoint, SPY technically was looking more bullish, but I am a little concerned about this banking news that just came out. So if it doesn't get the sell-off yet, if it just tries to keep holding, then if it breaks 413, then we could turn bullish to go to 414. But that doesn't seem as likely now that there's so much fear involving the banks again. Might just come down to retest the 200 EMA, then try to bounce from there and just remain choppy until we get some very, very big earnings. Until then, thank you all so much for listening. I want to keep this video as short as possible, and I just want to say I want the best for everyone. Please remain calm, cool, and collected, and just know I have some merch down below around the comment section if you are interested. And if not, completely fine with me. Thank you all for listening. Do not forget about the Webull link. Offer ends tomorrow. The market to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.